Okay, right. Does everyone have can I just quickly ask you to, I'm gonna put in the chat, okay? The live link, okay? This is the link that everyone sees. Okay, can I ask you just to click on that to see if we've got the...
Yeah, we're feeding that. That's live, bro.
Okay, so we're live. So for those in the room, we are live, okay?
Just to check, when I switch tabs, can you see it? So if I change, if I'm changing from this tab to this tab, can you see the change on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool, thank you. We are missing Stefan though. If someone can ping him the link to the meeting.
He's
Just
here now. He's here now.
Mine. Yeah, we are broadcasting live.
All right.
So if we all go on mute, please, that'd be great. Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show and tell. It's just gone 10:30, which means it's time to tell you about what we've been up to over the past few sprints. My name is Tom Buttrick, and I'm from Southwark Council, and I'm here today with colleagues to do this. For those who aren't subscribed, do please subscribe to the channel. This BoPS channel if you haven't already, and we'll keep you up to date on new content and what we've been up to. As ever, this show and tell is being recorded, and shortly we'll upload it to this channel alongside all of our other show and tells. So if you're interested to learn what else we've been up to, do have a look in the videos on the channel. Next slide, please. So for those who don't know, BoPS, the back office planning system, is a new software application that's been designed by and for local planning authorities to process planning applications. So our users are the planning officers who work through their caseload of planning applications and the managers who review the recommendations of those planning officers and issue the decision notice to the applicant who applies for planning permission. Now, BoPS is actually processing live lawful development certificate applications with our partner councils, Lambeth and Buckinghamshire, and we're processing these applications alongside our sister digital tool, which is the Ripper tool, reducing invalid planning applications. Now, Ripper is the tool where applicants submit their applications to the local planning authority, and BoPS is the back end tool, the back office tool, where planning officers process the application. And we've been working closely with MHCLG and the Ripper project to deliver an end-to-end process, and that's what we're now delivering for live lawful development certificate applications. We're iterating the tool constantly, hence the sprints, hence the show and tell, and we're adding functionality through each sprint. So next slide, please. At the end of today's presentation, if you have any questions, we'll answer them then. There's a link in the YouTube description, the rebranding link. You'll hopefully see it there. Do type your questions in about the tool, about what you've seen, and we'll come to them at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, let's jump on to the next slide. What have we been up to? Let's see. Next slide, please. So the past two sprints, because it has been August and we have had a few people on holiday, so this is a summary of two sprints. It's been around evidencing the assessment of the application, iterating the validation process, testing the tool. So it's very much a focus around incremental improvements. We've implemented a new user testing approach, formalizing the feedback process from users of the tool, and then feeding it into our Trello board to then prepare tickets to iterate the tool further with new functionality. We've been sitting down with planning officers and really evidencing and asking them questions about how do you assess a lawful development certificate application against the GDPR regs? What are the processes you do formally and informally? So we've been looking at that so we can then take that learning and apply that to the functionality in BoPS, and that kind of function obviously uses the GDPR regs, and we're looking at how we include the actual references of the GDPR in the tool, but also using plain English as well around how we actually kind of simplify the GDPR regs for the user, but obviously based on the regs themselves. Importantly, we've onboarded a new dev from Unbox, and that's Stefan, and we'll introduce himself shortly. We've again been looking at the invalidation flow, as in when an applicant is received through Ripper, what's the process that the case officer takes to assess the documents that have been received. They should be valid if they come through Ripper, but sometimes they're not. What is the process the case officer does? How do they communicate with the applicants, and how do we get the valid documentation, or whatever reason the case is invalid, sorted? So we've also been, as part of that, we've been looking at notifications, we've been looking at text, getting consistency of text in terms that's sent to the applicant across the three partners. We've been looking at updating the maps that we're using. So we're using OS maps for red line plans, and we've been looking at styling and how we communicate important dates to the case officer. So there's lots been going on, lots of iteration, and we're going to demo some of that shortly and give you a bit more detail. But let's jump on to the next slide, which is welcome to Stefan. Stefan, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Steph, I work for Unboxed, the new tech lead on this project, and I'm taking up after James Darling, which you might have interacted with in the past. Yeah, I've been working on BoPS for about a month, and I'm still kind of getting to grips with it because it's a comprehensive and successful project, so I want to make sure that I get it right, but hopefully you should hear a bit more about what I do soon. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Steph, and it's great to have you on board, and it's great to be onboarding you into the project, and looking forward to iterating the tool to make it better with your expertise. So great to have you on board. So as those who've watched previous show and tells, and those who've been keeping abreast of these projects, we went live earlier in the summer, and the BoPS tool is processing live applications through the private beta process. Now, private beta is when we invite applicants to submit their applications through Ripper into BoPS, and that's been a success. We want obviously more applications to come through the process to be processed, so we can iterate, so we can show the success. And in the near future, we will be looking to go to a public beta, so to increase the volume of applications, and we need to ensure that we're ready for that. So we'll be doing that. What's great about the MVP and processing live applications is that we've proved the concept of improving the processes that take place, bringing the application process into a service that really responds to the users, both the case officer and the applicant. So it's great to see, but we recognise that an MVP needs to be improved, and the feedback we're getting from case officers and from applicants helps us improve and iterate the tool each week. And so it's great to have that live experience feeding into that process. Next slide, please. As I've touched on, we need to communicate with, the tool needs to communicate with the case officer and give the case officer the key information that they need as they determine the planning application. And obviously, a lawful development certificate application has a statutory start date and an end date. The application needs to be determined within that period. The key objectives of BoPS is to increase that processing speed, so we can get an application decision to the applicant quicker. But the case officer needs to know when those important dates take place. And this sprint, we've iterated the language that we use to communicate to the to the case officer when the application is valid, and it's really clear that that's when the application starts. We spent a lot of time finessing this invalid application process, being able to allow the applicant to quickly understand why the application is invalid, and then create the functionality for the applicant to send us the right information to validate it. And this update here is then giving the case officer clearly that information of when the start date is. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we've got now a consistent approach to mapping across the Ripper tool and the BoPS tool, which is fantastic, because having that red line plan being consistent on the boundary of the application site is important. If a red line is drawn on different mapping layers, sometimes the mapping layer, you get a different outcome. So now we have a consistent approach built on OS maps. And as planners, as we know, we love using OS maps for the case officer to potentially redraw a red line if that's the reason for invalid, and then send the updated red line to the applicant. The applicant also sees an OS map. So when the applicant assesses the updated red line and approves it, they see exactly what the case officer has seen. So that consistency gives confidence to the case officer and to the applicant as well. And that's a really great step. And we'll be demoing that shortly. Next slide, please. Invalidation, as I've discussed, is an important flow that we've been working on. And one of the things that we recognized that we needed to do was set out, if an application is valid, we need to make sure the applicant is told. If there's no point in having an invalid application sitting around and we haven't told the applicant needs to know. We need to resolve it as quickly as possible. So now, if the application is made invalid by the applicant, but an invalidation request to tell the applicant that it is invalid hasn't been raised, you can't invalidate the application. So this means, you can't invalidate an application without telling the applicant why, which I think is a really important thing to make sure the process for the applicant is speedy and we resolve the application's status as quickly as possible. So that's an important step to ensure that they have a good service. Next slide, please. Through BoPS, we communicate with the applicant and the agent, and we have 3 partner councils. And previously, we all communicated with the applicant and the agent using our own text in notification emails, etc. And we came together to consolidate that text to find a common wording, and we've agreed that. So that's now what gets pushed out in our notifications. And we've also worked that if an agent or an applicant is on the application form, we need to communicate with both or one, depending on what information is submitted. So we've ensured now that the notification emails are sent to the right person, either the agent and the applicant if there's no agent. So that's an important step there. Next slide, please. And if there's a number of reasons for an invalid application, the case officer will tell or inform the applicant through the invalid application request, and that gets pushed to the applicant. But the case officer needs to clearly see the reasons that have been sent, and we've updated the invalidation request screen so it's clear. As you can see on the screenshot here, the request, the date it was sent, the reason why, and the status of has the applicant responded or not. Information that if the applicant has responded, when that was received, because that could be the valid application date. So we finessed this screen so it's really clear that the case officer has the information they need to understand where this application, what's outstanding, what the invalid reason was, and gives them a clear overview. And so again, that user interface for the case officer is really clear and straightforward, and that came from user feedback, that request, and we've now implemented that. So again, a great example of planners feeding into this process to develop a system that works for them. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's the end of my part. I'm going to hand over to Melissa now, who's going to do a demo of some of these features. So Melissa, if I can hand over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. I'm Melissa. I'm one of the developers on the project, and I am going to take you through the features that Tom has just been mentioning. So I'm going to start out by creating a planning application to show you how now we email both the applicant and the agent. So what was happening before is that every communication was being sent exclusively to the applicant, but we wanted to make sure that, for example, when an action needs to be taken, if an applicant has hired someone to take this action for them, then the agent should be getting the notification so they can action it. And for every other step, both agent and applicant should be informed. So we'll start by executing this planning application, which we can see was successful. And our planning application is called 11 September Gardens. Now I've emailed my agent email as my work one, and then the applicant email separately. And we can now go over to see if an email has been received. So here we go. We have received your application for 11 September Gardens. And now on a separate email window, if we refresh, we have received your application again for 11 September Gardens. Okay, so now we'll go over to the tool and see what else we have been up to. And we need to log in Oh, of course, this has logged me out. So give me 1 second to fetch the passwords from here. 1 moment. I've been logged out of everything. Someone can help me. So we have some work. Tom, if you would mind sending me the password, I'll stop sharing for 1 second.
Have you got that in the chat, Melissa?
No. Yeah, because this is staging, of course. Okay, let's share again. Apologies for the interruption. Okay, can you see my screen again?
We can. Thank you, Melissa.
Okay. So let's find September Gardens. Applications. All right. So now, on the process of validating the application, previously, if you wanted to invalidate, you could just come here and press invalidation. But right now, you need to create at least 1 validation request. So what we'll do is we'll add a new request, and we will create a red line boundary change so that we can also show you the changes that we've done to the red line boundaries. And here, we're going to have to redraw this map. To do it. So and add a very descriptive message. So now when I press invalidate application, an email has been sent to notify the agent in this case, since there is an agent present. So we'll refresh our agent email. And here we are. So we'll go over now to the BoPS applicants, which is the front-end facing service for applicants to reply to any changes necessary. And we'll have a look at the red line boundary. And as you can see, the OSL map is now being displayed. I'm going to agree with the changes. And now, if we go back into the planning application and we have a look at our validation requests, we can see it has been responded, and we can also see the data that it was sent to and the date when the response was received. So this has been part of the work to clarify and give more information to the planning officers about the different statuses of the application. Okay, so now when we go back, we are now able to validate the application successfully. Okay, so I've shown you that 2 emails get sent when the application is created, when the application is validated as well. And only 1 email gets sent if any action needs to be taken, so that either the agent gets informed about the action that needs to be taken, or the planning officer get informed that the action needs to be taken. And I've also shown you our new maps with the red line boundaries requests. And I think that is it. Was there anything else?
Maybe, Melissa, you could just quickly show the kind of the invalidation request screen, so we can see this, the kind of the updated sort of table. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so we can clearly see there the data, the key data that the case officer will require to understand the status of the application. And as I said previously, it's really clear now from user feedback that that's the information that the case officer wants, and so it's great to be able to implement that as a function within the tool. Oh, maybe one last thing. Can you jump to the key application dates? So on the just at the top there on the concertina.
Here.
Sorry, key application dates. Fabulous. So this is important to ensure that we have the correct terminology here. So at the moment we have validation complete, 16th of September, but actually that will be the start date for the statutory period of determination. So that's what we're updating next to ensure that the language that we use is clear to the case officer of which date is which and how we get that date. So that's next on the list. Good.
Next, and over to you, Tom. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm just going to touch on what's next in the next sprint. We've already started, as I said, looking at the GDPR references and the assessment of what the case officer does to assess the application. We're going to be further looking at that and working on some design work and dev work. We're going to be looking at aligning file type uploads, particularly around type sizes of files as well, so ensure that there's a consistency across Ripper and BoPS. Again, that further iteration of the validation process. Adding scale bars to sitemaps, and we're going to be doing some design work around immunity applications. And the one I'm most interested in is, say an application is valid. The case officer is determining the application, but there needs to be a change. Maybe something isn't PD, a wall is too tall, etc. And the case officer wants to give the applicant an opportunity to submit a revised plan or similar. We're going to be looking how the case officer can communicate with the applicant, and the applicant can send through a revised plan. We're calling that a change request. It's pretty much the same functionality as a validation request. The case officer goes to the applicant, asks them something, and the applicant responds. So we'll be looking at that next. And I think that's a key part of good planning and ensuring that we deliver for the applicant, so they get an opportunity to build a lawful extension or similar. So we'll be looking at that next. Let's go on to the next slide, please. Just to highlight for those who are working councils and local planning authorities, MHCLG, in conjunction with our partners, are conducting some showcases for councils who may be interested in working with us on both Ripper and BoPS. Now, the first showcase is today. That's full. It's this afternoon, but we have two showcases, one next week and one the following week. And if you would like to register your interest to attend, there's a link in the description below. It's the Eventbrite description, or drop us a line if you're interested. It's going to be about an hour and a half session. We're going to do a full end-to-end demo of Ripper and BoPS, go into a bit of detail and show the different processes. We're actually going to record those and put them on YouTube so you can see the full end-to-end process. So watch out for those as well. But if you're interested, do jump on the Eventbrite link there and sign up. That is for councils only who are interested in working with us. Next slide, please. So if you are also interested in just getting involved with some testing or you would like a demo, do get in touch. We're constantly speaking to new councils who want to know more about the projects. As we know, the digital paradigm, the digital planning paradigm is now. Councils and planning authorities are interested in what's coming. How do we improve our services, deliver better customer service to our applicants, and give our case officers the tools to do their jobs in a more efficient way. So if you're interested in that, do get in touch, and we'll happily show you more about the tools. Next slide, please. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, do pop them in the Rebrandy link below. The next show and tell is on the 30th, but I'm going to jump over just to see what questions are in the link there. There aren't actually any questions to date, so I'd like to say thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks to show you what we've been up to next. So thanks very much, and goodbye.